to the Inspire Wealth podcast with Prof, where we dive into the world of real estate investing and wealth building strategies. I'm your host, Mallory Meehan. I'm a real estate professor, attorney, and seasoned investor here to guide you through the ins and outs of creating wealth through real estate. If you're looking to take your real estate knowledge to the next level, don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our latest episodes and offerings. Welcome to another episode of Inspire Wealth. I am your host, Mallory Meehan, aka Prof M, and I am so pleased to welcome Bob Lachance. How are you?
Very good. How you doing?
I am great. Bob, where are you currently?
I currently am in Connecticut. Like we just talked about before this, I just landed 2 nights ago from the Philippines because we had our yearly event there, which was pretty cool. And obviously, we were just talking about your VA Ruby. So really nice to meet her as well. It was fantastic.
That's great. Okay, Bob. So I know we did a little bit of talking beforehand, but why don't you set the stage? Tell us a little bit about your journey, where you are now, and maybe some of the things that you've kind of learned along the way.
Sure. Well, we'd be going back pretty far. So I started back in 2004, just investing in real estate. Prior to that, I played professional hockey for 8 years. And then, towards the end of my career, I had to decide, well, what was I going to do? I know a lot of your listeners are maybe thinking about jumping into real estate or interested in real estate. And I was in that same exact position. This is back prior to 2004. I decided to jump into real estate because I went to Boston University for college. I went 4 years, but I mean, I really can't say I went to college. I did, I played hockey there, and I did not focus on school at all. I look at education now way different, to be 100% transparent. But I left 2 classes early as well. So I did not get my degree. I thought in my mind, all right, I want to play in the NHL. I want to play hockey. However, I'll always go back to school. Well, fast forward 8 years, never went back to school. Did not want to go back to school, but I want to jump into an industry that did not need a degree to get into. So, did a lot of research. Real estate it was. So I jumped into real estate with 2 feet. I thought I'd be a rehabber at the time. So my first deal, I drove around neighborhoods called farming areas, made offers on listed properties. One got accepted, and I'm like, uh-oh, what do I do now? Because I had no education. The podcasts that you run are extremely educational. The education that you give, I never had that back then. None of us did, because we didn't have these. We weren't fortunate enough to have podcasts like this. And so anyway, I just wung it. I reached out to a mortgage broker, found financing, reached out to contractors, got a contractor, ended up putting the deal together. 2 months, rehab was done, made 32 grand, which is fantastic. However, I also realized I knew nothing about what just happened. Right. So, you're back and forth to Home Depot. You do all this work. You're drinking through a fire hose, no systems, no processes, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I joined my local real estate association because I needed education.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's where all the investors were hanging out. It was back again in 2004. And I saw a speaker speak on pre-foreclosure and short sales, which quick, breakdown. Short sales when the property has more debt than it's owed, you have to negotiate it down with the bank. So I invested in that course. And at that time, I thought I was a pre-foreclosure investor. So I went to, it's kind of a funny story. I went to probably about 90% of the individuals, 50 to 90% of the people in that REIA group. And I said, who is the best person in Connecticut in short sales? And they all pointed to this one gentleman, and his son's working for me now. It's kind of funny. So you go back, kind of works full circle. Yeah. So I said, hey, listen, I'm not looking for a job. I'm just looking for a team to join. And, what can I do? Do you have any openings? He said, I actually have a door knocker position open. I'm like, all right, I'll take it. So I knew not, like I said, I knew nothing about, he handed me a script. He handed me a list of people that are behind on their mortgages. And I door knock literally every day from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., Monday through Friday. And, my whole thought process was, I'm joining a team. This guy's going to mentor me. Maybe I'll get more rehabs, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I did not do a rehab for about a year, 2 years after that, but I did learn the business from ground up. I hired a door knocker to take my spot. Then I started negotiating with banks. So it was the best position ever. We did probably over 1,500 short sale transactions through that time. I helped start two little education programs. I'd run the coaching in the back end while I was flipping properties and lending money and doing all this stuff. And then fast forward to 2014 is when I started my first virtual assistant company while investing and while coaching. So I had a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And then fast forward today, I have a portfolio. I lend money on a small scale. I have my virtual assistant company, and I have a investment company here that we did over 180 transactions last year. So
Wow.
got a lot going on.
Yeah, you do. So I have to like try to figure out where I want to dissect first. So let's go back into you reached out to somebody who was really good at one specific niche. Like you wanted
Mhm.
to understand foreclosure and short sale. So tell me about what you learned along the way there in that experience, and maybe some things that you wish you would have learned or wish you would have done differently.
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest takeaways, and for me, is the education side. But and it's kind of funny. I look at it now different, right? Let me preface this saying I look at things way different now. As you know, the older you get, you wish you could always go back.
Mhm.
So if anyone's listening to this that is younger, or not even younger, it doesn't matter, or wants to jump into real estate, I think one very important thing is to get educated and also find a mentor you could work with. I think those two things are very, very important because the sooner you could start working with someone that could, pretty much hold your hand and walk you, through the course of transactions, I think it's extremely important. One of the things, and I know is a big mindset block for anybody that's starting, they're saying, well, I don't want to give away part of the deal. I have such a deal, but you don't have a deal unless you actually close on it.
Yep.
So, and this took me a little while. A lot of times when we first get started, we're selfish.
Mhm.
And one thing I just do want to, I want to not preach, but I just want to let everyone know that a little something is better than nothing, because if you learn a little something, you get better at it. And then the next step is you get more of the piece of the pie, more of the piece of the pie. So, and in the end, you make more money by working with other people, because this business is lonely. If you work by yourself, you will be way further behind than when you work with other people.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better because I tell my students all the time, I'm like, use me as a mentor, because if you find something and you don't know how to close it, you're not going to have anything. So
Correct.
100% of nothing is
Yep.
worse than 5% of something, right? So
Correct. Correct.
yeah.
Correct. And I think that's a huge takeaway, because especially people starting, they have that mindset block. And it's okay if I'm partnering with you and it's a $50,000 deal and I only make 10,000, you make 40 grand. That's a huge win. Huge
Mhm.
win.
Yeah.
But think
Because
about
guess
that.
what? That was 10,000 you didn't have, and that was
Correct.
40,000 I didn't have.
Correct. So work together, and over time it always works out. And it's kind of funny. Then if you fast forward a couple years, you're going to be in the other seat, and people are going to be bringing you deals, and then you're gonna be like, and then you'll start realizing that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you did this door knocking, and I'm actually kind of curious. What was maybe one of the most surprising things that you learned, or one of those experiences that you'll never forget while you spent all of those hours door knocking?
Well, first and foremost, door knocking is not fun. I'm going to lay it out there right now. We are so fortunate today
Mhm.
that you do not have to door knock. There's way other ways to, go direct to sellers. But back in the day, it was a lot different. We didn't have what we have now.
Mhm.
But a lot of people, you'll knock on the door, they'll look through the blinds, they won't answer the door. And, what I figured is I had to create a leave behind campaign. So the idea is to get response rate from all the actions that you do. So I realized after that first day, I'm like, all right, I door knocked, I don't know, 100 houses, and I only talked to one person. Like, there's got to be a better way. So then that's when I created a leave behind campaign. So
Hmm.
every house that I door knocked, and that response rate went to 15%. I'm like, all right, we're on to something. But
Yeah,
that's one of the things that I learned is that, when you get a no or you get some adversity, there's always something that you could do to maybe increase the chances of whatever that conversion you're looking for.
I love it. Love it. Yeah, that's great. So we'll fast forward. now that you're done with your door knocking, you hire somebody else to do that,
Mhm.
and you're on your own path. What kind of properties or what kind of strategy were you going after post, like, I don't know if this was like 2006, kind of the start of the financial crisis, and how did that
Yeah.
affect your strategy or your, what you planned on doing with real estate?
So my strategy from '04 to '08 was the same. So it was, we would get overdebted properties, we discount them down into, what we used to do is we used to land trust back in the day.
Mhm.
So we used to do simultaneous closings. And obviously, it's very difficult to do those now. But back in the day, those were allowed where, you discount the debt and basically the new buyer would fund it out. It's almost like wholesaling back in the day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it was pretty much similar to that without getting too far in the weeds there. But we did that until I think it was when title companies started getting involved and said, well, you can't do that anymore. So they started changing the rules. So we had to change as well to where now we started doing short sales as a service because we literally lost about $250,000 from that one change, just like that. So my partner and I looked at each other and said, all right, we need to change our model. And we kind of saw it coming. So we started a little bit before that. So we
Mhm.
started changing our model where we now did it as a service to real estate agents or buyers. And we started putting fees on the HUD where the bank started paying us, et cetera. So we were way ahead of the curve to what it is now back then. So that's how we kind of addressed that challenge.
Got it. Okay. So now we kind of fast forward. You said you have a portfolio. What kind of properties does your portfolio generally consist of?
So I've done everything. I've had a 10-unit commercial, done syndications, single family, sold those. Now I'm back to just building up single family portfolio, single family rentals. I have 13. I could be off by a couple. I have 13 now in Jacksonville. And now we're building up more here in Connecticut. So the idea is just to, slow and steady. Slow and steady wins a race in real estate. And I just sold out my last syndication that was in Texas. And I'm just looking for more, looking for more opportunities.
Awesome. So are you still having people bring you deals that you then evaluate, or what's that process look like for you today?
Yeah, for us, it's just we go direct. We handle all the marketing ourselves, and they come. We have a sales floor here. I think we're at about 8 sales guys here in Connecticut that are in office.
Mhm.
We have all virtual assistants doing a bunch of different tasks to drive in leads, into our funnel. Right now we use Podio as our CRM, so it goes all into our CRM, and then we have our individuals, our sales guys reaching out direct to seller. So we just go direct to seller.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, so you have this portfolio, and now tell me about the creation of Riva and tell me how this came about and kind of what your vision of the company is.
Yep, absolutely. It's kind of interesting. So when I started in real estate education side of it, this was 2007. And as I was coaching students, we started from scratch. And, as we got bigger and bigger and bigger, I realized there was a theme out there. And the theme is the majority of the students that we had, I would get on a coaching call. Let's say you and I had a coaching call today, and then I would set up another coaching call, let's say next Friday, as an example. And there's a common theme. Every time I got on that call, I would say, all right, what tasks did you do? And majority of them, probably about 97% of them, didn't do majority of the tasks. And what I would find is that they were working part-time or full-time. They had the passion, they just didn't have the time to do those tasks. And I was like, there's got to be something out there. This started like 2007.
Yeah.
There's got to be a service. There's got to be a product. There's got to be something that I could help these individuals get their time back. And then, fast forward. In 2013, I got introduced to what a virtual assistant was. And it was more, it was more on the real estate agent side back in the day, but I was on the investment side and I'm like, let me test one. So then I tested one in 2014, the light bulb went on. I'm like, you know what? This could be a business. So my first partner in my virtual assistant business, we started this, and all of our VAs are out of the Philippines. So we started a company that was based in the US, except all of our staff was in the Philippines. So it was pretty interesting. He would go back and forth to the Philippines, and we just built this virtually. And then it just kind of morphed from there. And it started with one, and then we tested it and it worked. And fast forward, now we're at hundreds of VAs now.
That's awesome. I love that, especially because, I think people get misinterpretations, because if you are going to hire people in the States, obviously it's going to be at a different cost. And so,
Yep.
you have to be cognitive of that. And, the cost of living is different here than it is there. And
Mhm.
so, I like that balance. So tell me if, and I'm going to pretend like I'm not an already existing client because I am.
Yeah.
So if I'm somebody who is looking to get
Mhm.
into real estate and, I work a full-time job, I have a family,
Yep.
I have kids, everybody has the schedule. How will your company help me solve my problems? And maybe what is some of the training that they go through to kind of alleviate any like startup, you know, concerns?
Yep. Yep. So what I would look at first is saying, all right, what is the niche you want? So if it's buy and hold, let's just say, right? It's saying, all right, how do I acquire those properties? If you're brand new, you first have to look at anything is marketing and sales, right? Marketing, sales, lead generation.
Hmm.
If we don't have leads in our business, then it's very difficult to run a business. And there's multiple ways to do it. So right now, I don't know in your area, but right now we're seeing opportunities to buy off the MLS for buy and holds, right? For flipping, no, but mostly, I mean, you'll get a deal once in a while if you look in the MLS and it's a property that needs rehab. But if you're looking to build your portfolio, your virtual assistant could go and make MLS offers all day long, or you could go direct to seller. So there's different direct to seller marketing campaigns that your virtual assistant could do. They could post. I know your VAs do a lot of content creation. They also do, direct to seller calling, messaging, etc. So I would say look at those first, but I would identify what exactly you want. What kind of properties do you want, and how are you going to get them? And my team could help with all that, but just kind of as a reference point.
Okay. So do you generally recommend different softwares for your VAs to use, or maybe give people an idea of things that you have found to work well in your business?
Yeah, the good thing is I'm also an investor, so it's easy for me to train my virtual assistants on the real workings of how real estate investors work, because a lot of stuff comes out of my office. Like I said, we do over 180 transactions per year, so I'm also in the weeds. Not only do I run these businesses, but I'm also in the weeds on a daily basis. I have guys knocking on my door talking about deals all day long, which is fantastic because I get to stay in it. I mean, I know we talked about before we jumped on this call. It's great. We both get really excited about doing deals as well as running businesses, right? But I mean, you and I are entrepreneurs. We have multiple businesses to run. That excites us, but doing deals is also real fun.
Yeah. No, that's great. So I'm curious, how has it been owning a business in the US and having all of your employees outside of the US? Have you had any like struggles there? I can't imagine that that's necessarily an easy thing to get around.
Well, what's funny? Since COVID, it's become very, very commonplace,
Mm.
right? I mean, we even have individuals here in this office that work, you work a split schedule, either sometimes at home, sometimes in the office. So for me, it's always been normal. Not to mention, when I was in the real estate education space, the main office was well, it was here in Connecticut, but then they moved to California. So for me, it's always been virtual, so it's just normal. And I know when I'm talking to individuals now, it's just very easy mentally for people to grasp the work from home concept.
Mhm.
Back when I first started, it was very, very difficult saying, "Oh, how do I know they're going to do things?" Well, now it's easy because people are more accustomed to it.
Yeah, for sure. So you're going to go out and buy some office building is what you're saying.
Do you have anything for sale?
Um, so I am curious to get your perspective. I like to do like a market update. So are
Yep.
there any markets that you're finding to be hot markets, or any particular asset classes that you're finding to be? I know you said single family is kind of what you're
Yep.
looking to add to your portfolio. But is there any particular market or any other asset class that you're finding to be kind of like the sweet spot for you right now?
Yeah, and I can speak, and we do stuff in mostly Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Connecticut right now.
Okay.
We're doing a little bit in Florida, of course. But I'm looking at market in Connecticut's always been very good. And it's the market has gone up every single year, but it hasn't, shot up. I know certain towns like you probably see there's certain areas that are hotbeds that are just still going over asking cash offers,
Mhm.
which to me it's getting a little ridiculous in some places. But I'm looking at Connecticut as just a stable market. And I
Yep.
look at where do properties typically stay stable? And you look at historically, Florida's always gone way up, way down, back up, down. Like it's been
Mhm.
more volatile. I like looking at, areas that are more stable. And Connecticut's one of those areas that have been stable. Yeah, they shot up, but if you start looking at it, you look at things in a different lens now to where if you're buying and holding, look at your cash flow and look at your debt service. What is it going to cost you, right, per month? And what is your cash flow going to be? Because and this is something I wish, I grasped when I was younger. Every single time you make a mortgage payment, you're paying down that debt.
Mhm.
And that's the important part. It's the long game, and you could depreciate these assets. There's a lot of stuff behind. I know that you teach that I wish I actually embraced back, 20 years ago, because, things would be a lot different today.
Yeah, tax specifically is one of my fortes. That's one of the areas that I like to focus on, really helping people identify tax strategies that match their specific investment strategies. So yeah, I could talk about tax all day long, and my students always tell me they're like, "How do you find tax so interesting?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Because when you know what the government is telling you, you
Yeah.
know what to do in order to maximize your tax saving
Yeah.
advantages."
And
So.
I'm gonna give you a plug here. Whoever's listening to this, connect with you, because this is something that I wish, like I said, I wish I would have embraced it. I just turned 50 this year. I'm embracing it now when I'm 50. I'm like, could you imagine if I did it when I retired from hockey back when I was
Oh, yeah.
30? I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, so
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You would be in a different position for sure.
Yep.
But,
Yep.
everything happens for a reason. You have life
Correct.
lessons that hopefully you pay it
Correct.
forward to somebody else, and that's always how I
That's
have to
right.
look at it too. Um, okay, so I do have a number of athletes that
Yeah.
love to get into real estate. And so I guess this is going to be a plug for those athletes where, they think that they're going to have a career in a
Hmm.
professional sports. I've had a number of hockey players, football, baseball, those sort of
Yeah.
things. And the one thing that I always tell them, I'm like, your education is something nobody can take away from you. And a sport on a sports team is something that's easily taken away, through
Hmm.
one reason or another. What advice would you give to maybe those student athletes or those that are in the sports, realm
Yeah.
on how they should look at their future?
Absolutely. Well, I actually have a podcast called Pucks to Properties where we interview ex players and we go
Love
through
that.
the same thing. And it's what happens in the same story happens is you never feel or think that the sport is ever going to end. I played 8 years. My brother was number 4 in the world draft pick. And you look at him now and he went to 1 year of school, and the only thing he could do now is go into, so he's one of the head scouts now from New Jersey, which is fantastic. But if it didn't go that route, he would have no education, and he'd be the end of his career looking, saying, all right, I made all this money, but where is it? So what happens is, and my advice to my younger self too, I went through this, trust me,
Yeah.
it's just some very, very challenging, because you identify as an athlete
Hmm.
and it will come to an end. It always does. I don't care if you're an NFL player making millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, it comes to an end. So you have to look at what is going to fulfill you for the rest of your life, because money's not it. You could have $100 million. I know many, many people that have a lot of money that are not happy because their purpose is gone. They don't have that drive anymore. The boys in the locker room are not there anymore. It's just gone, and you need to find another passion out there. And for me, it was real estate. It was building a team. Now it's my virtual assistant company. It just, it's creating a win for everybody. I mean, that with all the businesses, the gratifying part is when you hire all these individuals, it's those people you help. It's not only them, it's their family as well. Because
Right.
if you hire somebody, yeah, they're supporting themselves, but a lot of them have families, so they're supporting their families, and et cetera, et cetera. And if you teach them the right things, it just, it just spreads all over.
Hmm. Absolutely. Nope, I couldn't have said it better. That's great advice. I also have a number of wrestlers too that kind of fit the mark
Yep.
there. And it's funny because I my class ends up being one of the most popular classes specifically for athletes that
Nice.
I think they're starting to see that real estate is one of those areas that's easily
Yeah.
transferable, and it's all about network. It's all about who you
Yeah.
know, who knows you. And from there, I think one of the most important things that you said is finding a mentor. And so,
Yeah.
finding somebody who you're not asking for anything, but you're asking, what can I do for you versus what can you do for me?
Correct, correct. And I think that's a big thing. So, and I do find that a lot of athletes are successful because they do have that, the mentality, obviously. Business is like sports, right? It's not always up. You have ups and downs. You have to stay mentally strong. And you almost have to stay even keel, right? Don't get too high, don't get too low.
Mhm.
And typically athletes understand how to work with a team, and that's part of business. So that's why, I mean, I love working working with athletes or hiring athletes to work for me.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Okay, so I have a couple last questions for you.
Okay.
So, one, um, how do you how do you train a VA to
Mhm.
match, like, I know the matching process, but how did you set up a matching process so that the investor would be matched with a VA that could solve their ultimate problem or their ultimate time hurdle and do
Yep.
it efficiently and effectively?
Yep. Well, what we do is we put them through about a month of training. So I always call it the 80-20 rule. We teach them as much as we can within that month. And we teach them all, cold calling, scripts, online management, content management, creating content. So we have a laundry list of stuff that we train them on. And then what we do is just like you would do the same thing. If someone raised their hand and said, "Hey, I want someone who is good at content management," as an example, right? So what we do is we screen, because our placements team gets all of our virtual assistants from. So just to give you an overview of how our process goes, we have a sourcing and recruiting team in the Philippines that consistently, we go through thousands of resumes per month. And as soon as they come in, they go through an interview. And if they pass our interview process, they go to our training team. And then they go through a month of training. And as soon as they pass, because they have to pass coming out of training, there's a lot of different testing and scoring scorecards that we do. And then it goes to our placements team, which you were talking about. It's almost like match.com
Yeah.
within, hiring somebody.
Yeah.
And what we do is we find out the tasks that you're looking for. So our sales team will then give our placements team, once, someone raise their hand, they say, "Hey, this is what I want a cold caller. I want, content management. I want outreach," whatever those tasks are. And then our placement team will match them up with the best virtual assistant that fits those tasks. And we do predictive indexing that does, obviously the breakdown of what the virtual assistant looks like. And then we match them up, we put you on interviews, and then, you pick the best virtual assistant. So it's very, very seamless. And then, the relationship starts.
Yeah. I love that. I'm just curious, how many virtual assistants do you personally have that work
Me
directly?
personally, whew, uh, over 20, 30. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
We have a lot.
All right. So, piece of advice for some of our listeners who are, thinking about getting into real estate. A lot of the people here maybe have analysis paralysis where,
Mhm.
they can run the numbers, they can see, what might work, what might make sense, but just have never pulled the trigger. What would
Yep.
you tell them about moving to the next step?
So if you're nervous, I would say start working with somebody, because if you need some, like a safety blanket, then get someone to do your first deal with, because that is a way that it'll push you past that analysis paralysis. I've seen it. Like I said, I've coached thousands of students just like you. And that's what I see. It's, people just need a safety blanket. They need someone to, give them a pat on the back, say, "Hey, great job. Yes, you're going in the right direction." Right. So that's what I would do. Just going back and understanding, that's what I did and it worked. And, coaching many, 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 many individuals, that's what I found to be something that helps.
Got it. Awesome. Now, one of the other last things that I ask my guests are you reading any good books? Do you have any recommendations of a favorite book or, things that you're listening to? What can our listeners gain from your brain right now?
My brain right now, well, I have Audible, so
Same.
reading right now Principles from Ray Dalio, but let me just hit my library button, and I got a lot of stuff like it all depends on where I am. The one of them I just went over, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a,
Yep, I've read
I
that one.
can't say it on here. But I read Steven Schwarzman's What It Takes. It's very, very good. It's all about obviously his story and his life. Let me see here. I got Elon Musk's story. It's actually pretty good. I got 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. That's a very, very, very good one. I'd recommend. Robert Greene did one with 50 Cent. It's called The 50th Law. It's also good. The standard Think and Grow Rich. You got to throw that one in there, right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
But the one that I do really recommend most of the people is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And this is one thing. This is one of the reasons why I started my virtual assistant company. This is kind of like the concept of buying and holding. Everything compounds on each other. You get tax advantage. You get mortgage pay down. You get positive cash flow. So it all kind of builds up on each other as the compound effect. It's a short book too. Trust me. I would not give you a book. 48 Laws of Power is very, very thick. It's difficult to get through, but Compound Effect is very, very easy if you're going to start somewhere.
So that's a good book for somebody just trying to get their
Correct.
feet wet, trying to build up some confidence, build up some acumen.
Yep.
Awesome.
Exactly.
All right, Bob. Well, thank you for your time and for being on the show. Again, do you have any last minute thoughts or anything that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I guess the last minute thought would be don't wait. Start sooner than later. Start now. That would be my advice, because before you know it, you're going to miss a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and you look back, oh, I wish I started. So find that security blanket person, whether it's, you, whether it's myself, and also jump into education right away, because education with action, not just education.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. 100%. All
Cool.
right. Well, that wraps up another episode of Inspire Wealth. Be sure to check out our notes below with all of Bob's recommendations for books, and be sure to subscribe, and we will see you next time. And for those who want a more hands-on learning experience, check out our online courses at inspirewealtheducation.com. Whether you're just starting out or looking to expand your investment portfolio, I've created step-by-step guides and resources to help you achieve your financial goals. So hit that subscribe button and let's start building your wealth one episode at a time.